Hey guys, I'm here tonight with the LX 570, the Lexus version of the Toyota Land Cruiser. And oh man, it's really interesting comparing this to the Land Cruiser and just everything else that Lexus is making these days. I've always kind of considered this as one of the best and ultimate luxury SUVs. In this video, I wanted to give you some of my first impressions and just kind of compare how it stacks up and how it drives, what it's like. I've put a couple hundred miles on this the last couple days and gotten to know it pretty well. The first thing you may notice is that it's absolutely slammed right now. It's in the lowest ride height setting. This has the hydraulic suspension system that can raise and lower ride height, kind of work with articulation and give you better off-road clearance and traction. And the cool thing about it is, unlike an air suspension system, it can just drop almost immediately because all that fluid can just go into the reservoir. And so when you're ready to park it, you can slam it and you're ready to go. Let's start it up and I'll show you around this a little bit. We'll raise it up to max height. One thing that's nice, you can do that with the door open. You notice right there you've got a little LX symbol projected down from the door. You can hear it there raising up. I really like these taillights. There are parts of this LX that I like better than the Land Cruiser from a design standpoint. First of all, I think the suspension makes this an incredibly versatile on and off-road vehicle. It's really nice to have that maximum ride height clearance that you get from the truck when it's fully lifted, which we'll see in a minute here. These headlights and fog lights are fantastic. We'll see here in a little bit on this drive that they're incredibly bright. I think they look good. The Terminator grille actually, I think, also kind of fits the LX, more so than many of the other Lexus vehicles. You know, it'd be nice to have something a little bit more conservative and understated, but we have Terminator grills, and this is a little bit of a Terminator SUV. We'll do a daytime POV drive on this and get kind of some full driving impressions. But for now, this thing has just an awesome amount of space inside. This is the two-row, 5-seater LX. So we don't have a third row in this, but as a result, we get a ton of extra storage space in the back. And you have a nice low loading height back there too. Rear climate control, you kind of have this screen where you can control everything. Heated seats, cooled seats, everything that you'd want back here. And this interior does look really good at night. Lots of buttons down here. You feel like you're in an airplane cockpit. Kind of cliche, but the way this thing is laid out, it actually kind of feels like it. This tailgate can be manually operated or lifted by hand very quickly, which is very nice. Love the step in the Land Cruiser and LX. You can use this as a table, a place to sit. Comes in really handy for loading. And of course you can close this with the press of a button as well. Alright, so here we are now in the full ride height. It's maximum ground clearance. I watched Matt Farah's one take of this off-road in California, and this seemed to do the job. You compare this with a lot of other vehicles that are off-road capable, and honestly, this should pretty much get you through everything, even on the 20-inch wheels with the street tires. You have crawl control, multi-terrain select down here. You can tighten the turning circle too with some traction control trickery. Lock the center diff, have second start, and then there are a few drive modes for driving on the street. You have Eco, Comfort, Normal. You can customize that, and also Sport and Sport Plus. Now, I will say these drive modes work incredibly well. Sport is kind of this fun mode where it just kind of tightens up the suspension. The sway bars stiffen up a little bit. This has the hydraulically operated sway bars in this as well, so you get a little bit of that Lexus goodness. Similar system that's in some of the higher spec 4Runners, and the GX does a really good job to manage articulation and also high-speed cornering. Oh, before we set off here, actually, let's show you guys a quick view of the reverse camera. Pretty good visibility at night. Not the best resolution, but you do get a nice 360 view. And with the mouse, you can go over here, switch to a full screen on that side or not. Massive display, tons of adjustability here. Lets you have 2 screens, which is kind of nice. You can split between, let's say, your miles to the gallon, which you would never want to look at, climate control, and something else. We're on kind of the night mode with low brightness now. All the ergonomics in this LX really fall to hand easily. It's very easy to learn where everything is and sits. And I even don't mind this mouse. Luckily, there's buttons and knobs for everything that you need, so there's a lot of redundancy. And you don't really need to go into these menus for a whole lot. You have your power volumes, your tuned scroll buttons. The mouse is definitely superior to the touchpad in Lexus's Infotainment. Of course, this is a really dated system, and this is also a dated vehicle to dated platform, but still, in 2019, this thing feels absolutely phenomenal. Probably one of my favorite features of this interior, which we'll get a better look at in the daytime, is just the quality and the shine on this wood. Lexus used to use a Yamaha wood, same wood that was used in Yamaha pianos. I'm not sure if that's still the case in this modern LX. I assume it is, but it's a really, really quality wood finish. It's one of the few wood finishes used in automotive applications that I would actually be proud to have in my vehicle. So how does this thing drive down the road? To sum it up, it's heavy. All the controls are pretty heavily weighted. The steering being the first and most noticeable. Steering in this is pretty heavy. Unlike most Lexuses where there's a little bit of a lightness and an ease to steering this vehicle around, you notice the width of the wheels in your inputs, and you notice that there's just a little bit of resistance, and you feel the weight of this vehicle under you when you're driving it. And I think that's kind of important because this is a big, leery, heavy beast. Ride quality, I think, is phenomenal. It really smooths out the bumps. I think ultimately it's a little bit better than the Land Cruiser, but because of the suspension and the trickery with the hydraulics, you do get superior handling. Once you get around some corners, this becomes a pretty, handles relatively flatly, and in sport mode, the gearing, this 8-speed transmission does a really good job of selecting the gears that you need and just kind of making shifting decisions for you. Put it over into sport mode, you can use the paddle shifters. They seem relatively responsive. They'll actually control the gear instead of select the maximum gear available. And yeah, this drivetrain is nice. For some reason, maybe it's the extra added weight in this LX, but this feels a lot more sluggish to me than the Land Cruiser did. That Land Cruiser with the same engine, the same 5.7 liter V8, felt quite a bit quicker. Maybe it's the tuning, maybe it's the responsiveness, but just something that I've noticed. This isn't slow, but it's definitely not as fast as the Land Cruiser is, at least according to my butt dyno. Maybe you guys can chime in on why that may be. It could just be a weight thing. Comfort mode, everything smooths out really nicely, including the ride quality. Really bumpy road here, and we just kind of float over bumps. Let's throw it into Sport Plus here on this entrance ramp. Giving it just a little bit of throttle to get those revs up. About 55 miles an hour around here, pretty good. You let off the throttle, you get a little bit of rotation out of the chassis. For how massive this thing is, it actually handles quite well, and due to that hydraulic suspension. We have radar guided cruise control, lane keep assist. It's not the most modern and up-to-date system, but the radar guided cruise control does work quite well, and I think it's just a nice feature. Honestly, there are a few things that Lexus needs to update with these vehicles, but the important stuff remains just at a high level of quality and a high level of luxury. You know, you can spend $90,000 on this, or you can go and buy an Escalade for the same price, and there's absolutely no comparison. This literally feels like twice the vehicle of an Escalade, and for that, I think for what this is and the amount of research and development and quality that goes into these LXs and Land Cruisers, it's worth the price. And also in the U.S., we get these pretty cheap. The rest of the world, they're 2 or 3 or 4 times as much with taxes and everything. There are a few differences between the Land Cruiser and this LX. Beyond the obvious, some little things like the leather in the LX is a little bit thinner, a little bit softer, a little bit more supple, and the Land Cruiser has a little bit of a thicker hide, meant to be a little bit more rugged and durable. Personally, between the two, I would have this LX 570 hands down. I think the Land Cruiser is great, but one of the complaints that I had with it when I drove it about 6 months ago in the fall, we put about 700 miles on a trip out to Pittsburgh for the weekend, and the seats were really uncomfortable. I just couldn't get comfortable with a seating position, and also over a long drive, my back just started hurting. These seats are a completely different story. They're very comfortable. There's a lot of adjustability, and that's a big selling point for me, especially given that these two SUVs are just about the same price. When you're just driving around normally, this V8 gives you plenty of torque. It's so smooth, it's so quiet. It really just kind of operates in the background, and I think you couldn't really get that much more luxurious unless if you had an electric power plant, and it would be totally silent. Of course, with this LX, the elephant in the room is its fuel economy, and I've averaged this week, babying it before filming these videos, I've averaged about 15 miles to the gallon according to the readout. Now I'm sure we're probably down to about 13 or so. About 13, 14. I think on a long road trip, you could eke out 16 from this LX. Really though, for 90 grand, who's counting? Think of it as this. You've just bought a first class ticket to wherever you're going. You've got the most luxury, the most legroom, the biggest space, the best sound system, the best amenities, and it's going to cost a little bit more to get there. But for the added comfort, it's probably worth it. One advantage of this vehicle's weight is that it can tow a lot. So in that respect, it kind of does it all. For someone who needs an SUV and can have off-road capability, luxury, reliability, comfort, towing capability, this makes for a heck of just a combination of an overall vehicle. These headlights are fantastic too. Everything in here is really well bolted together. No shakes, no rattles. There is just one thing in the back that's rattling around. I have a feeling it might be the spare that just isn't quite tightened down enough. Something's just rattling around a little bit over bumps in the back. But otherwise, this LX feels so solid. Let's slam this thing, put it into this parking structure, and wrap up this review. This has been a real pleasure to drive this week, and my week's not over in it yet. I think I will do a comparison between this LX and my GX 460. Let's get that ride height lowered here. There we go. You can only do it at around 5 miles an hour. And it drops quick. That way you don't have any woes for parking structure clearance. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or anything you want to see with this LX 570. Until then, we'll see you in the next video. It looks so weird slammed.